Thank you for joining me for part two of our examination of the Rakuchu Rakugaizu folding screen. In part one, we had just finished looking at Kyoto Station. So let's return to the Heian period, and we'll next visit the Imperial Palace located at the end of Sujaku Avenue. But already by the time of our screen, it was well established in its current location on the east side of Kyoto. It looks like a busy day at the Imperial Palace with many aristocrats and court officials going about their business, perhaps delivering documents and offerings to the imperial household. On the rooflines, you can see examples of carved adornments. This is the Imperial Palace today, built in 1855 as a true representation of the Dairi residence of the original Heian period palace. The version in our screen was built by Tokugawa Ieyasu, the third great unifier, just before the screen was painted. And you can still see the gegyo adornments under the roofline. They represent fishtails. Fish are associated with water and are a protective talisman against fire. This is the Imperial Palace today, cleared of all structures except for the recreation of the Dairi residential structure from the Heian period. The area acts as Kyoto's central park. The white pebbled garden we just saw is located here. Outside the palace, palanquin porters rest while their courtier or warrior visits the palace. There are plain wooden palanquins, masculine and perhaps for a warrior occupant. The occupant of this palanquin is likely a priest because of the left-facing swastikas on the porter's uniform, usually used as an auspicious symbol to mark the location of a temple. The palanquins could be lacquered and quite elaborate for female courtiers. And today you might see one at a local festival commemorating the passage of a Kyoto aristocrat through the town, perhaps centuries ago. The Heian-era imperial palace was at the far north side of the city, with the Dairi residence located off to one side and recreated today further to the east in the gardens we just saw. The central building was the Chodo-in, or Great Hall of State. It was a magnificent structure, and images exist of great ceremonies conducted at the hall. When Kyoto lost its status as capital in 1868, the citizens were devastated. They were placated by being promised large investment in education and commerce for the city, and today Kyoto is known for its excellence in education. They were also promised a recreation of the Chodo-in, Great Hall of State, and that occurred and is today's Heian Shrine, albeit a 5/8 scale reconstruction. Now, don't forget to visit the gardens at the back of the shrine, designed by famous landscape designer Ogawa Jihei VII, a seven-generation Kyoto gardener. As I mentioned, the building is now called the Heian Shrine, after Kyoto's original name. Unusually, it is dedicated to two emperors, Kammu, the first emperor who moved the capital here in 794, and Emperor Komei, who was the last emperor who lived in Kyoto. Emperor Komei is on the left. His son Meiji is in the middle as a 15-year-old when he moved with the capital to Edo which had been given a new name, Tokyo, the eastern capital, in 1868, and Emperor Meiji again at the age of 59 on the right. Meiji is the only other emperor to have a shrine dedicated to him, the Meiji Shrine in deep parklands in Tokyo. The next building we will visit is from the late Heian period, the Sanju Sangendo. This temple dates to the late Heian period, or the Insei era, or cloistered rule by the emperor era. The emperor, concerned by the rising power of his regents, the Fujiwara, abdicated at a young age and exerted power and influence from behind the throne. The emperor's young son would fulfill the onerous ceremonial roles designed to keep the emperor from actually being involved in decision-making. Sanju Sangendo was erected in 1164 by Emperor Go Shirakawa as his retirement villa. Because he was a pious devotee to the Bodhisattva Kannon, the goddess of mercy, the retirement villa became Renge-o-in temple upon his death and was dedicated to Kannon. Sanju Sangendo means Hall of 33 Bays, and the structure surviving today looks much like our screen image. It stands next to the Kyoto National Museum. The building contains 1,001 images of Kannon. The central figure, which is 3.28 meters tall, is by the best sculptor of the Kamakura period, Tankei. It is considered his foremost masterpiece. This form of Kannon symbolically has 1,000 arms and 11 heads, necessary for the busy Kannon to save all of humanity. And surrounding her are 1,000 standing images of her, the Kannon. They're all 1.63 meters high. They're by various important artists. Many of the artists were Tankei's students. Since 1606, the temple has been known for an archery competition conducted in January in the depths of winter. And the tournament is still conducted on the second Sunday of January. At the main entrance to the temple is a street tea seller. You can see him whisking the powdered green tea. Just as we do today, he would have had a bamboo whisk to mix a spoonful of precious powdered green tea with a little hot water. My favorite green tea cafe and sweet store is Toraya at First Avenue near the Imperial Palace. Elsewhere in the screen, there are other tea sellers. The citizens of Kyoto were wealthy and enjoyed their tea as they do today. And they went through a lot of tea whisks. Here we see tea whisk sellers with many whisks stuck on top of their bamboo poles. Just like the archers, there are sumo wrestlers battling in the Sanju Sangendo compound. Kyoto was full of sumo wrestlers, another way of absorbing itinerants into society. A farmer with his hoe indicates his fields were not far from the center of the city. And elsewhere in the screen, we see fields being tended. The farmer probably lived in one of these quiet hamlets depicted in the screen, or perhaps here. Nearby, lumber is transported using the river system. Even in the quieter areas of the city, a cup of tea was always available. Next, we visit the Gion Shrine and the Yasaka Pagoda. The Yasaka Pagoda belongs to Hoganji Temple, a Rinzai sect Zen temple. It was one of Kyoto's earliest temples. It was likely established by the Hata clan, a clan of Chinese weavers living in the Kyoto basin well before Kyoto became the capital in 794. The building in our screen was rebuilt in 1440 and is the structure that survives today. It's a popular defining symbol of Kyoto. Now, confusingly, the Gion Shrine today is known as Yasaka Shrine. The main gate stands at the end of Shijo, or 4th Avenue. The god venerated here is Susanoo, the god of storms. He is placated here and the city hopefully protected from his wrath. The Gion Courtesan district is nearby and is a wonderful area to stroll around in the early evening when you might glimpse a maiko or geisha hurrying to an appointment. But please leave them be and don't interfere with their progress towards their appointment. In our screen, we see a joyful picnic in the grounds of a shrine, or the shrine, the Gion Shrine, or today's Yasaka Shrine. These types of picnics are still enjoyed by the Japanese, particularly in the spring under the cherry trees. The food at the picnic in the screen looks delicious. You can see the tiered boxes of food and large bottles of sake, and contemporary bento boxes for cherry blossom picnics are equally fun and absolutely delicious. The Yasaka Shrine remains one of the most important in Kyoto. In 869, the Mikoshi, or divine palanquins of Gion Shrine, were paraded through the streets of Kyoto to ward off an epidemic. And this was the beginning of the Gion festival. And our screen has a large section devoted to the Gion festival. It is held annually on 17 and 24 July in the height of summer, when pestilence was usually a problem. The festival was used for the purification and pacification of disease. The festival begins with a parade of divine palanquins, taking Susanoo and other deities into the city. And this is followed by large floats from all quarters of the city, parading on 17 and 24 July. The floats make their way up Shijo, or 4th Avenue, and other major avenues of the city. We recognize all floats in the screen. For example, a cute one is the long sword float, participating since the 15th century. It's the only one to carry children on board, as children needed to be protected from the epidemic. Boys have their faces heavily painted with makeup as they enter a godlike state and are therefore protected from disease. And another, the praying mantis float, a symbol for bravery. The praying mantis sits on top of the float. The insect is mechanically manipulated from inside the float, raising its oversized front legs up, no matter the size of the prey. It's a favorite with the crowds. The Hoshoyama float relates to Fujiwara Hosho, who was an aristocrat who fell in love with the poet Izumi Shikibu in the late 10th century or mid-Heian period. She set him an impossible task to bring a sprig of plum blossom from the imperial palace, which he does, and they marry. Tsukihoko, the moon float, is a 17 July festival float. It has existed since the mid-15th century and is dedicated to Tsukiyomi no Omikoto, the moon god. Musicians sit on the float, as they do today. Elaborate carvings on the roof are by Hidari Jingoro, early 17th century carver. The textiles on the side of the float are well regarded, and it's often referred to as the moving museum. Moso-yama makes a 24 July appearance. It's also known as the bamboo float. Moso was a 3rd century Chinese politician who was one of the 24 filial exemplars. He dug up bamboo shoots for his aging and ill mother in the depths of winter. Moso bamboo is named after him. On our float, we see Moso returning from the snow-covered mountains. He has a hoe to dig up the bamboo shoots and has a straw snow jacket over his brocaded kimono, which is a hint of his status. Today's float is similar, with hints of the Silk Road on the side painting, camels crossing the Taklamakan Desert, and Moso and the pine tree covered in snow. Moso's clothing is distinctly high-ranking Chinese. In his right hand, he has a bamboo shoot covered in snow, and in his left hand, he rests a hoe on his shoulder, also covered in snow. The carvings on the wooden frame are metal engravings of flocks of birds, and the sculptor is Kono Baire, 1844 to 1895. The back panel is a black and white ink painting of Moso bamboo, painted in 1940 by Takeichi Seiho, 1864 to 1942. This subdued back panel is unlike any of the other floats and is quite distinctive. The Moso bamboo, or tortoise shell bamboo, is, as I mentioned, named after Moso. The bamboo shoots must be harvested just as they poke through the soil. And the final float in our parade is Kikusui Hoko, or the chrysanthemum dew float. A small doll on the float has drunk the dew of the chrysanthemum and will live a long life. While the parade continues outside, servants prepare a feast in the back courtyards, scaling delicious sea bream and cleaning octopus and making sure fresh kimono have been aired. Nearby, we see a kindling seller selling the stove fuel, which will cook the delicious dinner. Down by the Kamo River, we might assume that clothes are being washed in the river, but in fact, this man and woman operate a cloth dyeing business and are rinsing the cloth before it is dyed and hung out to dry. And just behind them is their cloth dyeing factory. Up next, we visit the Kamigamo Shrine and its famous horse race. The race first occurred in 1093 CE and is still conducted annually on 5 May. It's part of a larger Aoi festival, which celebrates the procession of an imperial messenger and princess to the Kamo shrines. We can see the imperial messenger overseeing the race, surrounded by court officials and impressively dressed warriors in full military regalia. And of course, you can always get a cup of tea. This festival is called the Comparison of Two Horses and is said to be the start of horse racing in Japan. Only 2 horses are used. The Kamigamo shrine is represented by the vermilion rider on the left, and the black-clad rider represents a different shrine, the Iwashimizu Hachimangu shrine. The race begins with 1 horse a length in front, and the winner is decided on whether the distance between the 2 horses shortens or lengthens. The Iwashimizu Hachimangu Shrine is about halfway to Osaka. And you can see the Kamigamo Shrine is in the far north of Kyoto City, alongside the Kamo River. This video is in Japanese for a little over 1 minute. The race is 6 rounds. The first race, as you will see, is given to the Vermilion rider in honor of their winning the first race over 1,000 years ago. And you can see the young prince holds a fan up for the winner, blue for the Hachiman Shrine, and red for our Kamigamo Shrine. Now, another celebration in Japan is the Tango no Sekku on the 5th of May, celebrated since the 10th century or mid-Heian period. The 5th of May is still Children's Day. And you can see the colourful banners outside the homes with warrior helmets on display, much like we still do today, with sea bream and other congratulatory red food prepared for the children. These days, the streamers tend to be carp, representing strength, swimming up a stream. We see many street performers throughout the city, known as hoka. The performers were often recitations of famous military tales accompanied to music. Another fight breaks out, most likely between itinerant, masterless warriors, but on this occasion, it's actually quite serious, with blood being spilled. So thank you for joining me for this part. Please join me again for part 3. Thank you.